My name's Dave Schumacher, and I'm the Science and Technology Advisor for the Southern Wisconsin Paranormal Research Group. And what I'd like to do is talk to you about some of the equipment we use when we are doing investigations or research with the group. This piece of equipment here, this is a thermocouple or a very fancy thermometer. And it reads the temperature very quickly and very accurately. It reads ambient air temperature, and we like to use this because it gives you an idea of what the real temperature is. Because if you use one of the non-contact thermometers that a lot of people are using these days, it actually has to hit something to get a reading. And we're not really sure if what we're looking for, ghosts, apparitions, have any type of mass to them. So it's best to use this at least in conjunction with that to figure out what the real temperature is. And this is yet another piece of equipment that we will use. It's an air ion counter. It measures the concentration of positive and negative ions. And there's been some published research out there that shows that if there's an abundance of positive ions, people will have more negative feelings. If there's an abundance of negative ions, you have a more positive feeling. And this is one of the reasons why some of the ion generators, the ionic breezes, they'll pump out a lot of negative ions. Very high-end digital recorders. And she'll also run another recorder as well, a backup recorder, an analog cassette recorder. And that way she's able to compare, if she gets something that sounds like a suspect EVP, we can compare it to see if it shows up on one recorder or two recorders. And she's also able to determine if it was just a natural sound in the environment that we may not have heard at the time of the recording. And now we get into some of the more advanced pieces of equipment that we use with the group. And these two computers with the variety of sensors here, this is known as the DEAD system, or the Direct Environmental Acquisition Data Logging System. And what we like about that is it takes the data that it collects, electromagnetic fields, radiation, temperature, humidity, geomagnetic fields, random number generators. It'll take that information and save it and date timestamp it. So if somebody has an experience, or we get a piece of data in a photo or an electronic voice phenomena, or the temperature supposedly changed, or the electromagnetic field changed, we can go back and take that and correlate it with all the other environmental data that we were monitoring. And that way it gives us a really good feel of what's going on in the environment, which can tell us what is affected in the environment when there's paranormal activity, or what is happening in the environment that make us think that there might be some sort of paranormal activity. Now, a little bit further explanation on some of this equipment. This computer here is running a quantum-based random number generator. It's basically like every second it's flipping 200 times a coin. When there's a high degree of emotion in the environment, or there's something going on in the environment like poltergeist activity, or what we like to call recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, that the output of this device goes from randomness to non-randomness. And we're not quite sure why it happens yet, but it is something that we're taking a look at and using it in the field more and more. And some of the results we're getting are interesting. Again, the recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, we actually ran this in a location where a female was experiencing poltergeist activity, and at the time that something happened, you could see there was actually a buildup, and this little line started deviating significantly, being that it was outputting non-random data, and then there was a loud pounding on the wall, and that was the peak of the location on the data that it deviated from randomness, which was very interesting. So we continue to use that in our investigations to collect more information. If we move over to the next piece of equipment, the graph on the left-hand side of the screen, that's keeping track of the electromagnetic field, mainly the man-made 60 hertz field. We've seen that there's been fluctuations in that field in locations where people report various types of paranormal activity. There's also been some published literature where people have shown that changes in electromagnetic fields can affect your brain wave or your brain activity and have you perceive things that might seem paranormal. The next one, the graph on the right, that's measuring radiation levels. And the reason we're doing that is, again, with the environment, we're trying to measure as many things as we can to see what changes. And overall, again, this gives us a really good idea of what's going on in the environment when people have experiences, which hopefully someday we'll be able to say, okay, If you have this experience, we expect this to happen in the environment, or if something naturally happens in the environment, this might be allowing you to have an experience. So in the long run, we're hoping to better understand paranormal activity, hauntings, ghosts, and poltergeist RSPK type cases.